these markings on the ground here in the mountains of Ararat, that these are the last remnants of Noah's Ark, kind of shipwrecked, if you like, here on this mountainside. Scientists finally entered the mysterious structure believed to be Noah's Ark, and what they found inside has stunned the world. Hidden deep in the dangerous mountains of Turkey, this massive formation has sparked debate for decades. But now with new scans, underground imaging, and real scientific exploration, researchers may have uncovered evidence that could change history forever. Some believe this is the final resting place of the Ark described in the Bible. Others think it could be something even older, something humanity was never supposed to find. Before we expose what scientists discovered inside this mountain, hit like and subscribe, because some believe the truth behind Noah's Ark is something the world was never meant to uncover. For thousands of years, the story of Noah's Ark has been dismissed as myth by some and defended as truth by others. According to the book of Genesis, after the great flood destroyed the earth, Noah's Ark came to rest in the mountains of Ararat. Since then, explorers, archaeologists, and treasure hunters have searched endlessly for proof. Most came back empty-handed, others vanished into mystery. But this time feels different. High in the rugged terrain of eastern Turkey, scientists discovered strange markings and an enormous ship-shaped structure buried beneath layers of rock and soil. Using advanced radar technology, they detected what appeared to be hollow chambers hidden deep inside. And when researchers finally entered the site, they found something that left even experts speechless. Wood-like formations, unnatural compartments, patterns that seemed too precise to be formed by nature alone. Now the world is asking the same terrifying question. If this really is Noah's Ark, then what else has been hidden inside it for thousands of years? In the eastern part of Turkey lies a region where just reaching the location itself is a challenge. Towering mountains, dry rocky land, silence spread everywhere, and in the middle of it, a harsh volcanic terrain, Mount Tendurek, part of the greater Ararat region. This is not a place where you can casually go for a trip. There are no crowded cities, no easy roads, just rough slopes, strong winds, and an environment where something could remain hidden for thousands of years without ever being noticed. But the real story begins from above, from images taken in the sky. Decades-old aerial photographs revealed a strange shape on the ground in this region, a long, clean oval formation. And this was not some random natural pattern, but an almost perfect oval, like a massive ship buried in the ground and turned to stone. Local people had been seeing this shape for generations. For them, it was nothing new. They always said, "This place is different. There is something here." Slowly, this location got a name, the Durupınar site, and when it was measured, its length came out to be more than 500 feet. What's surprising is that this measurement is very close to the ancient descriptions that mention the size of Noah's Ark. For many years, this place remained limited to just stories and rumors. People would come, look at it, form their own theories, and then leave. For some, it was Noah's Ark. For others, just a strange natural formation. What the truth really was, no one could say for sure. But then, a major shift happened. This time, the team that arrived didn't treat these rumors as stories. They treated them as data, and that's where everything started to change. Earlier explorers came with shovels, ropes, and guesses, but the people who came now had tools that could actually see beneath the ground. The site had been inspected many times before, but back then, the technology wasn't advanced enough. Now, things were different. The team brought ground-penetrating radar, which can read the layers beneath the earth without digging. Along with that, they used tools like 3D subsurface imaging, which can create a kind of map of the hidden structures inside. Together, these tools were reading the ground like a book, layer by layer, detail by detail. The most important thing was that this time, the search wasn't driven by belief or emotion. Everything here was being measured, scanned, and verified. When the team first ran their radar scans on the site, they weren't expecting anything unusual. Normally, in places like this, scans show broken rocks, mixed layers, and completely random patterns. Just the kind of messy structure nature creates. But what appeared on the screen this time was completely different. In the radar images, clear, long, straight lines were visible. In some places, there were perfect angles, as if someone had carefully measured and built them. Inside, layered sections appeared, arranged almost like flooring. And the most shocking part, some areas showed symmetrical compartments, like separate rooms or sections laid out in a pattern. Now, this is where things get serious. Because nature usually doesn't create such straight and precise geometry. Mountains, rocks, soil, these are irregular, full of randomness. But what was visible here didn't look random, it looked designed. The team carefully studied the measurements, and that's when another big shock came. The proportions of this structure were surprisingly close to the dimensions described in ancient texts about Noah's Ark. Not exactly the same, but close enough that it could no longer be ignored. That's when the debate intensified. Was this just an unusual geological pattern, or was there really something beneath the ground that could have been made by humans? When scientists collected soil samples from the site, something very strange came to light. The soil inside the structure was different from the soil outside. Normally, soil in the same area is quite similar, but here, the inner soil contained more organic residue, signs that pointed towards something that was once living. Some samples even showed traces that looked like decayed wood. And that raised a serious question, because at such high altitudes, finding remains of this kind of wood is not common. On top of that, the mineral levels were also different. So, it wasn't just the shape. The chemical balance beneath the ground didn't match the surrounding area either. And one more interesting thing, the plants growing right above this structure looked slightly different from the surrounding vegetation, as if something beneath the ground was subtly affecting the growth on the surface. Then, in recent scans, it was found that about 8 to 20 feet below, repeated patterns exist, like layers or structures formed again and again in the same way. Putting all these clues together, scientists started to believe that there could be something below that was once organic, or that some kind of ancient human activity might have taken place here. Now, if you carefully observe the area around this site, you'll notice a few more things that make the story even more mysterious. Scattered around are large stones with clean holes carved into their upper parts. Some people have called them anchor stones or stabilizers, stones that could have been used to hold a massive boat steady in strong waters. But the interesting part is that local people say these stones have always been here. For generations, families have pointed toward them as if they're not just ordinary objects, but part of some very old story. Not just that. In nearby villages, there are also stories that after strong storms, strange objects would sometimes emerge from the ground. Some claim to have seen pieces that looked like fossilized wood, while others talked about iron-like strips buried in the soil. A few mentioned long, flat fragments that looked like planks, and in some places, there were even claims of metal remnants being found. Now, none of these things alone can be considered solid proof. Every claim can be questioned, and many of them have been. But when you connect all these small details together, a kind of pattern begins to form. First entry inside. What did the cameras show? Now came the moment everyone had been waiting for. After continuous scanning, the team identified a few key spots, and from there, targeted drilling began. This time, it wasn't based on guesswork, but on data. Where to drill, how deep to go. Everything was already planned. As the drilling progressed, the team lowered special cameras inside to look beneath the surface. These cameras were thin enough to pass through even narrow underground paths. Everyone expected that the camera would only show darkness, soil, rocks, and nothing more. But the moment the first footage appeared on the screen, the atmosphere changed. It wasn't just empty space inside. There appeared to be a strange arrangement of dark, chamber-like structures. In some areas, repeated structural patterns were visible, as if something had been built inside. There were also sharp-edged cavities, clean, defined, empty spaces that didn't look like natural breakage. The most surprising part was that in some places, clear divisions could be seen, like separate rooms or compartments arranged in a sequence. This didn't look like simple layers of soil or rock. Even then, the team remained very cautious. They clearly stated, "This is not final proof. But at the same time, it was obvious that what they were seeing didn't look completely natural or random. As all this information started coming out, the atmosphere shifted completely. On one side, there was excitement, and on the other, equally strong doubt. And that's where the real debate began. Was this truly a major discovery, or were we just magnifying a natural illusion? The scientists themselves were the first to apply the brakes. They didn't make any big announcements, "No, we found it" claims. They clearly said, there is still more work to be done, more drilling, more scanning, more testing, until everything is fully verified. Nothing can be considered final. On the other side, skeptics also presented their arguments. They suggested that this entire structure could be a natural formation. Processes like erosion, lava flow, tectonic movements, or fault lines can sometimes create shapes that look artificial to human eyes. They also argued that if this really was a wooden ship, then for its shape to survive so clearly after thousands of years would be almost impossible. They even questioned the radar data. According to them, ground-penetrating radar readings can often be misinterpreted. Doubts were also raised about the soil samples. Were these truly organic traces, or just part of natural variation? And the biggest argument, there have been many claims about Noah's Ark in history before, and most of them were later proven wrong. But the supporters didn't back down either. They argued that this time the case is different. There are clean radar signals, compartment-like patterns visible inside, hints of metallic traces in some areas, and even the measurements are quite close to the ancient descriptions. They clearly said, "We're not claiming that we found the Ark, but we also can't say this is something ordinary." But in this story, there is one name that cannot be ignored: Ron Wyatt. Long before modern teams arrived, when there were no advanced scanners or today's technology, this man had already claimed that he had found Noah's Ark. The most interesting thing is that Ron Wyatt was not a trained archaeologist. He was a nurse anesthetist from Tennessee, USA. But his supporters called him God's archaeologist, a man who believed he had been given the task of uncovering history's greatest secrets. His journey began with a photograph. Aerial images published in Life magazine showing a strange ship-like shape in the mountains of Turkey. While others looked at that photo and moved on, Wyatt stopped there, and from that moment his 22-year-long journey began. For his followers, he was no less than an Indiana Jones. He traveled across the world and didn't just claim to find Noah's Ark, but also the Ark of the Covenant, Goliath's sword, the original tablets of the Ten Commandments, and even the blood of Jesus. At the Darupanar site, Wyatt made several claims. He said he found pieces of fossilized wood, metal bracket-like remains, and beneath the ground, rib-like structures and geometric patterns that looked like the framework of a ship. He also identified the stones with holes in them as anchor stones. But on the other side, critics challenged almost everything he said. They argued that Wyatt had no formal archaeological training. He often did not document his findings in a proper scientific way, and many of his conclusions were based more on intuition than solid evidence. Some people saw him as a genuine explorer, while others believed he was someone who saw what he wanted to see because of his strong beliefs. However, Wyatt's supporters argued that he was dismissed because he challenged established academic thinking. They believed that if his discoveries were proven true, they could shake many long-held assumptions. What the truth really is still not completely clear even today. But one thing is certain: Ron Wyatt kept this debate alive. If you think the search for Noah's Ark has only just begun, the truth is much older than that. This story isn't just about today. It's a search that has been going on for thousands of years. If we go back in history, the first-century Jewish historian Josephus wrote that the remains of the Ark existed in the mountains of Armenia. Later, many early Christian scholars, medieval thinkers, and even Islamic geographers made similar claims. According to them, this wasn't just a story, but a real object hidden somewhere in the mountains. Time passed, but the stories never ended. Medieval travelers and shepherds claimed that they had seen wood-like structures high up in the mountains, especially when the snow melted. But none of these claims were ever fully proven. Then came the time of World War I. During that period, some soldiers and pilots claimed that they had seen a massive ship-like shape in the snow from the sky. But because of war conditions and bad weather, these claims remained just stories. In 1876, a man named James Bryce showed a piece of wood, which he claimed to have found at a very high altitude. But that too could not become solid proof. Then, during the Cold War, things became even more interesting. Rumors started spreading that the CIA had satellite images showing a ship-like shape on the slopes of Ararat. But when those images were later analyzed, scientists said it could simply be shadows, rocks, and cracks in glaciers. In 1959, a major turning point came when Turkish captain İlhan Durupınar spotted a clear, ship-like shape during aerial mapping. This was the place that later came to be known as the Durupınar site. Investigations were carried out in the 1960s, but at that time it was considered a natural formation. Then, in the 1970s and 80s, interest rose again, especially because of people like Ron Wyatt. In 2003, a satellite image once again sparked debate, but no solid conclusion came out of it. In 2010, a team called NAMI claimed that they had found wooden rooms high on Mount Ararat. They even showed videos, but soon questions began to arise. Why was there fresh grass inside? How was spiderwebs still intact? Later, a Kurdish guide known as Parachute was accused of staging the whole setup. Apart from this, some people pointed toward other mountains like Mount Suleiman. Stories by Bob Cornuke and Ed Davis also came out where they reported finding wood-like rocks, a shrine, and even fossilized clams. But geologists clearly said that all of this was the result of natural sedimentary erosion. And the biggest issue, this location was about 250 miles away from the region described in Genesis. After so many years of searching, one thing is clear. This mystery was not created in a day, and it's not going to end that easily. In every era, someone made a claim. Hope rose each time, and then questions followed. And yet, the search continues even today because maybe somewhere an answer is still waiting for us. To find answers, scientists also turn their attention downward toward the depths of the sea. And this is where a big name comes in. Robert Ballard, the same man who discovered the Titanic. When someone like him says he is working on a new theory related to Noah's Ark, the whole world listens. In a 2012 interview, Ballard explained that he was investigating the Black Sea flood theory. According to this theory, thousands of years ago, the Black Sea was not a salty sea like it is today, but a freshwater lake. People lived around it. There were villages, farming, and settlements. Then one day everything changed. Water from the Mediterranean Sea broke through the Bosphorus with such force that some scientists compare it to being 200 times stronger than Niagara Falls. Just imagine a massive surge of water that swallowed thousands of square kilometers of land in a short time. It is estimated that around 150,000 square kilometers of area went underwater. Villages were washed away. People fled, and those who survived passed this story on. Ballard, along with his team, sent robotic submarines deep into the sea. At around 400 feet below, they discovered signs of an ancient shoreline, meaning a place that was once dry land. Some shells found that were dated to around 5000 BC. Along with that, there were also signs of tools, structures, and human settlements. This wasn't direct proof of Noah himself, but it did show that a massive flood could have actually happened. But even here, the debate doesn't end. Some scientists believe that this flood was sudden and extremely destructive. Others say, yes, there was a flood, but it wasn't that dramatic. And some argue that it happened slowly over time, not as a single-day disaster. Now, science is no longer just studying rocks, mountains, and ancient floods. It's also trying to understand how stories are born, how they travel across generations, and why some survive for thousands of years. And that's what makes the story of Noah's Ark so fascinating. For many people, this feels like a childhood story suddenly stepping into the real world. For scientists, it remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. For historians, it may represent a shared memory passed down from ancient civilizations. And for skeptics, it's still a battle between natural geology and human imagination. But for the first time, the entire world is looking at the same mystery together, even if everyone sees it differently. This is no longer just faith versus science. It's faith, curiosity, skepticism, and wonder all colliding in one place. Maybe that's why the story of Noah's Ark has never disappeared. Because at its core, it's not only about a ship, it's about survival, hope, and humanity getting a second chance. Even today, the story continues to inspire millions. Full-scale replicas of Noah's Ark have been built around the world, including the massive Ark Encounter project in 2016, proving how deeply this ancient story still connects with people today. Yet despite all the excitement, one truth remains unchanged. There is still no final proof. And if something truly is buried beneath this mountain, uncovering the truth will take far more research, deeper excavation, advanced scanning, and careful scientific verification. The biggest questions still remain unanswered. If there really is a hidden structure beneath the mountain, who built it? How old is it? And why was it left so high above sea level? Could this actually be Noah's Ark? Or are we standing in front of something that could completely rewrite human history? One thing is certain. Whether it's the Ark or something far more mysterious, the eyes of the world are now fixed on this mountain, waiting for the truth to finally emerge from beneath the soil. And if you love mysterious discoveries and hidden secrets like this, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next unbelievable story.